As part of the TDD project, we developed a model to assist us to deal with a very sharp increase in the demand for educators.
We're trying to promote this idea that the schooling system is part of the country's economy. It both draws from the economy, but of course contributes to the economy in terms of skills. The supply and demand model looks at historical patterns and then make assumptions around what we can expect in the schooling system in the coming years. Firstly, the learner-educator ratio has increased substantially.
The learner-educator ratio has been worsening from 27.4 in 2011 towards 29.8 in 2021.
That's high by middle-income standards. So to understand this, we were looking at trends in the last decade or so. Back in 2009, we were graduating only around 6,000 teachers.
In 2011, we can see that there were more first-time educators absorbed into the educator workforce than newly graduated educators emerging from our universities.
The Department of Higher Education and Training then established a bursary program focusing on young people wanting to study teaching. Because of this, the number of teacher graduates went up from around 6,000 teachers to around 17,000 in 2014.
However, budget constraints meant that additional teachers could not be absorbed into the public school system.
We've been sitting with around about 400,000 educators for the last 15 years. And then something really important happened. School enrollments increased substantially. So back in 2012, we had 11.2 million learners, and that went up to about 13 million learners in 2023. So an almost 2 million increase.
Ultimately, we started to see the number of older educators leaving the schooling system due to age increasing.
Back in 2013, approximately, we were seeing around 8,000 educators leave the public schooling system every year, and this has been increasing.
But the trend doesn't stop there.
In the modeling we did, we developed a number of scenarios. That means looking at a few indicators.
From the modeling done in the TDD project, we can expect a further wave of educator retirements within the coming years.
It will peak in 2030 at about 17,000 educators retiring each year.
We can expect a third of all educators we had in 2022 to move out of the system by 2030. That's a third of about 400,000 educators, and by 2035, just over half would have left.
However, on the positive side, the supply and demand model points to the window of opportunity. Essentially, what we can expect over the next decade is for the average cost of educators to remain about the same. We have had an oversupply of teachers in recent years. Those qualified teachers are a reserve pool that we can draw from in the coming years. Also, going forward, we're going to see enrollments more or less stabilize. What's very clear is that there will be some economic growth according to most projections, but the question is, how do we utilize that growth to grow the educator workforce? So the middle of the road scenario, which assumes about 0.8% economic growth, would increase the number of educators from the current 400,000 to about 430,000 by 2030. Ideally, we would like that number to increase to 470,000. If we are to realize the ideal scenario, we would need 2.5% economic growth. Then we would be able to take the learner-educator ratio back to where it was in about 2010.
Quality of schooling is one of the country's biggest challenges.
So we in education need to watch very closely what happens to the economy as a whole to understand where we can actually expect investment to improve in the schooling system.